Have you ever been scrolling through job postings and seen a QA developer and senior test engineer and thought, wait, aren't those kind of the same thing? Well, you're not alone. It's super common to see them used almost interchangeably, but here's the thing. They are two very different roles. And hiring for one when you actually need the other, or, applying for the wrong one, is a classic mistake. So what is the real difference here? Well, let me put it this way. One is a builder and the other is an architect. See, one person is focused deep in the weeds writing code to automate testing, while the other is designing the entire quality strategy from a 30,000-foot view. Getting this right is absolutely crucial, whether you're trying to build a team or just planning your own career path. So, over the next few minutes, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to break down what each of these roles really entails. We'll start with the QA developer, then we'll move on to the senior test engineer, and then we'll put them head to head so the differences become crystal clear. All right, let's get into it. First up, the QA developer. Now, I personally like to call this role the coder who tests. Why? Because their entire world, everything they do revolves around one thing, writing code. But it's code with a very specific purpose, to build the machinery that makes testing faster, more efficient, and way more robust. So at its core, the QA developer is all about building the machinery of testing. They aren't just running tests that someone else wrote. No, they are creating the automation frameworks, the tools, the whole shebang that lets the entire team test faster and more reliably. You could say their main product is code that, tests other code. So what does a day in their life actually look like? Well, it is heavy on coding. Think languages like Java, Python, or JavaScript. They're also super involved in the CI/CD pipeline. That's that continuous loop of getting code from a developer's machine out into the real world. And a big focus for them is something called shift-left testing, which is a fancy way of saying they get involved really early in the process to prevent bugs in the first place, not just find them at the end. And to do all that, you need a pretty specific set of technical skills. We're talking about automation tools like Selenium, Cypress, and Playwright. It means you have to understand how to test APIs, and you've got to be an expert in developer tools like Jenkins for automation and Git for version control. The most important thing to remember is this. It's a hands-on development role, just one that's laser-focused on the problem of quality. Which really just sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? A great QA developer has the brain of a software engineer. They're always thinking about code, architecture, and efficiency, but they apply it with the critical, almost skeptical eye of a tester. They are the ultimate hybrid, living in that space between building the product and trying their best to break it. Okay, now let's completely shift gears and talk about the senior test engineer. If the QA developer is the coder who tests, then the senior test engineer is the quality strategist. Their focus isn't just on the tools, it's on the entire quality process itself. And right away, you can see the difference in focus. A senior test engineer is responsible for the overall quality strategy. They're the one in the room asking those big picture questions. What should we be testing? How should we test it? And maybe most importantly, what is our real definition of done so we know we're shipping a high quality product? And their day-to-day responsibilities totally reflect that strategic focus. Yeah, they design test plans and cases, and they oversee both manual and automation testing. But a huge part of their job is leadership. They're mentoring junior testers, they're analyzing bug trends to find root causes, and ultimately, they are the gatekeeper of quality who has a real say in that final release sign-off. So the skills here are less about knowing a specific coding language and more about deep principles. You need rock-solid testing fundamentals, a mastery of different test design methods, and really strong leadership abilities. And while they definitely need to understand automation, their primary skill isn't writing the framework from scratch, it's knowing how and when to apply it strategically. And that right there is the key takeaway. The senior test engineer's mindset is all about that broad end-to-end perspective. They're the strategist, the one who's concerned with the quality of the entire process, from the very first line of code all the way to the final user experience, making sure that nothing, absolutely nothing, falls through the cracks. All right, so we've profiled both roles. We've met our two key players. Now let's put them head to head in a direct comparison. This should make the differences completely unmistakable. Let's break this chart down because it really tells the whole story. The biggest difference, the one that drives everything else, is the goal. See, the QA developer's goal is to improve testing efficiency by building automation. The senior test engineer, on the other hand, their goal is to ensure overall product quality and coverage.
It's like one person is optimizing the machine while the other person owns the final outcome. That fundamental difference in goals dictates everything else.
If we boil all of that down to the absolute essentials, this is it. On the left, the QA developer's main focus is building the tools for testing. And on the right, the senior test engineer's focus is on ensuring overall product quality. To put it another way, one is the tool maker, and the other is the master craftsperson who uses those tools to guarantee a flawless final product.
Okay, so who cares? Why does this distinction actually matter in the real world? Let's talk about what this means for you, for your team, and for your company.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. When a hiring manager posts a job for a QA developer, they have a very specific problem they're trying to solve. It's usually, we need someone to build and maintain our automation frameworks. But when they post for a senior test engineer, the problem is totally different. It's more like we need a leader to own our quality strategy and guide the team. If you use the wrong title, you get the wrong candidates, and you end up solving the wrong problem.
And that really brings us to the final thought. I want you to take a second and look at your team's needs right now. Are you guys struggling with inefficient, slow, or maybe even non-existent automation? Then you probably need a QA developer. Or is your team kind of lacking direction, maybe missing a cohesive test strategy and clear quality ownership? Well, then you're almost certainly looking for a senior test engineer. See, knowing the difference isn't just about job titles, it's strategy.